I think at this point, Amblin Entertainment might be owed a few royalties. So the Adam Project tells the story of a man who travels back in time and teams up with his 12-year-old self to stop the creation of time travel and to save the world. What's up, everybody? So the Adam Project is a movie that, if you're watching this at the time that it debuts, will be debuting on Netflix tomorrow. It is the newest team-up movie with Ryan Reynolds and Sean Levy. They're the ones that brought us Free Guy, and I was a big fan of Free Guy. I know some people weren't, but that was actually one of my bigger surprises of last year. And this movie was not on my radar until very recently when I saw some of my peers posting some of their initial reactions, and they all seemed to be very overwhelmingly positive. So I wanted to check this thing out, got a chance to check it out early, and now I'm here to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of the Adam Project. So essentially this movie is playing on time travel. It's also playing on like the 13 going on 30 type model, to where you get the older version of somebody kind of interacting with a younger version of their past, or characters, people that they know from their past, and mentally they're still an adult. Like all of those different kind of tropes and cliches that we've seen in a lot of different movies. This one's trying to take a newer, more sci-fi direction with that storyline. Essentially, you got Ryan Reynolds. He is a pilot in the future. I think it's like 2050. He steals a jet, goes back through a little slipstream, comes back into 2022, and teams up with his 12-year-old self, trying to prevent the creation of time travel because events in the future in Ryan Reynolds' timeline have gone off the rails, and he needs to save not only himself, but people that he loves. There's also elements where Ryan Reynolds has a bit of drama regarding his parents and regarding his past and even regarding his past self. So it's a movie that goes for sci-fi, it goes for action, but it also goes for a lot of heartfelt family drama, and it's trying to balance all three of those things throughout the runtime. And my first positive for the Adam Project is that I think it does a pretty damn good job at balancing those things. It's hard to keep the audience's attention as far as a family environment when you might have the mom who's more into the drama, more into the family heartfelt stuff. You might have the dad that's more into the sci-fi intellectual stuff. The kids just want to see the action sequences. And so this legitimately is a movie that I think pretty much all ages can get into, have a really good time with, because the movie never loses sight of one of those three particular ingredients of the story, of the tone, and of the direction that they're going for. And in particular, the family drama, the father-son drama, the heartfelt side of the story, when that starts to kick in, that was really effective for me. Now, I've said before, movies like Frequency that are very father-son centric, that stuff gets to me. I grew up with, my dad was a single parent, so mom-son stuff never really lands with me, but father-son stuff can wreck me if it is done well. And there was a couple of scenes where yeah, the waterworks were coming. I mean, there was a scene in the third act of this film with Mark Ruffalo and Ryan Reynolds to where it was going on, and my wife literally turned to me and she was just like, "You being a little crybaby bitch?" And I was just sitting there. Yeah, I am. The action sequences are fun, they're pulled off well. All the special effects in this movie are done very well, very modern. There's ships, there's time travel type stuff, there's people disappearing. That was kind of a nice little effect that I like, that kind of plays into them doing something different with the rules of time travel. They have this thing where like your narrative time or your home time, I forget the exact term that they use, but there's a certain timeline that you belong to in the universe. And if you die outside of that time, you just kind of materialize in this little kind of confetti static thing. And it was a cool little effect in these fight scenes where they're shooting people from the future and they just explode into this dust. And it was something different, something I haven't seen before. And time travel is something that we have seen done so many times that anytime they can find even the smallest element to stand out and do something unique, I always appreciate that. The chemistry and the dynamic between Ryan Reynolds and Walker Scobell, who is the younger version of Ryan Reynolds, is really good in this. I mean, you have Ryan Reynolds that has such a distinct personality, has such a distinct snark and sarcasm to him, such a distinct sense of humor, that when you can get a young kid who apparently this was his first film that can match that cadence, that can match that personality and go toe to toe with him to where they're like arguing with each other, like arguing with yourself in a mirror, it really works, and he's a good actor. There's some emotional stuff there that he pulls off well, but just that dynamic between Ryan Reynolds as the older character and Scobell as the younger one is kind of the heart of the concept, and they pull that side of it off very well.
What do you say, kid?
Punch that shit.
Oh, yeah.
And for those that are big fans of 13 Going on 30, you get a little bit of a reunion here between Jennifer Garner and Mark Ruffalo. They're both very good in their roles. Two very distinct roles to where Jennifer Garner's more just the mom. She's just a side character that's there to kind of ground the younger version of Ryan Reynolds. And then you have Mark Ruffalo that has a lot more of the emotional weight on his shoulders for the movie. Whenever he's introduced into the story and you get his interactions with the older and younger version of his son, that's where the waterworks come as far as I'm concerned. And Mark Ruffalo does a great job at turning on the waterworks. Moving on to the mixed, I gotta be honest, I adore Ryan Reynolds. I cherish Ryan Reynolds. I have for years. I was a Ryan Reynolds fan long before everybody else was. I'm getting a little burnout on his shtick. And I think Deadpool is kind of like a blessing and a curse all in the same, because Deadpool is like the ultimate realization of Ryan Reynolds' humor, and we've had 2 movies now. We've been waiting our asses off for this 3rd movie. But ever since Deadpool, it feels like his humor is kind of stuck in that Deadpool template a little bit. Now this is a little different. It's obviously geared more towards family, so it's not as rough, it's not as colorful as the Deadpool humor, but that same kind of delivery, that same cadence, that same snark, that's been Ryan Reynolds' humor shtick for a long time. And it's just getting to the point where I know he can do other shades of himself. I know that he can do other variations of his personality. He can do different performances. And now that he's kind of stuck seemingly into doing this same kind of humor because everybody expects that from the Deadpool guy, it's getting a little bit run dry for me personally. And I'm also starting to get a little bit wore thin on this constant need to go back and capture the nostalgia of the Amblin Entertainment 80s era of films. I know that was like the golden age for family films. That was just like an era in and of itself that we've been trying to get back to and capture certain things. Certainly since Stranger Things really like took off and just blasted that to the pop culture consciousness, a lot of movies and shows have really focused on that specific era and that specific subgenre of the era when they want to go and they want to capture that classic nostalgia. And it just feels like we've been doing it a little bit too much. Now, the movie does well with it. It's not like calling out Amblin Entertainment. There's not like E.T. references or anything, but it's very much going for that style, that tone of a movie. And it does pretty well at capturing it, but ever since Stranger Things, this has been done so many times that I just kind of want them to go for something else. Like 80s nostalgia is great, but there's other things that we can capture that wasn't just the Amblin Entertainment movies. Now moving on to the negatives, I think that this movie does very well with all of its moving parts, but most of its moving parts is derivative of things that we have seen before. We've seen this type of storyline before where you get the older person interacting with the younger person. We've seen this storyline before where you got parent trauma where they have to discover a truth that they never realized before to kind of heal that trauma. We've seen action sequences like this. There's a running joke in the movie that the weapon that Ryan Reynolds uses is a lightsaber, and he keeps saying it's not, but when you actually get to the action sequences, it's literally a lightsaber. And so while they are pulled off well, they seem like things that we have seen before. And so every aspect of this movie, from the core storyline to certain themes that it's exploring to a lot of the visuals that we see, we've seen them done before. They're done well, but there's not really anything new here. I also felt like we were missing some of the emotion that we got from Mark Ruffalo's character interactions with some of the other characters. Like, there's a really good scene between Ryan Reynolds and Jennifer Garner, but it's not an emotional scene. We got this whole subplot with Zoe Saldana, who is the presumed dead wife of Ryan Reynolds, and when he interacts with her and reunites with her, there's not really any emotion there. It's just an action sequence. And so while I understand they don't want this to be emotional and just a waterworks movie all the way throughout, there was just missed opportunities, I felt. If you're going to hammer home this whole theme of Ryan Reynolds trying to heal his relationships with all these different people, you really only get that from Mark Ruffalo. And my final negative, Catherine Keener plays the villain here, and I feel like she's very minimal in the movie. I mean, she's given a very basic motivation for her villain. Her interactions with herself in the movie aren't nearly as captivating as the interactions with the other characters. And even by the end, when it's like this, okay, we got to do it now, do or die, this whole final confrontation between her and the main characters of the story, you never really feel like there's a whole lot of stakes involved because you're not invested in her as a villain. Overall, guys, I really did enjoy this movie. I think for families especially, this is going to be a Netflix film that everybody's really going to enjoy and possibly watch a couple of times. And I think if you're a fan of Ryan Reynolds and you're not wore out on his shtick, if you're a fan of Amblin Entertainment and that type of nostalgia and you're not quite wore out on that yet, you're probably going to enjoy it even more than I did. But just walk in with the expectations that while this is a movie that's done pretty damn well, it's a movie that doesn't really have anything that we haven't seen before. So if you're a fan of Ryan Reynolds, time travel, or the 13 going on 30 concept, definitely check this thing out on Netflix tomorrow and stream it. So what do you guys think of The Adam Project? Are you a huge fan of this type of film, this subgenre? Are you somebody that just longs for that Amblin Entertainment 80s nostalgia and you love any movie that can capture that? Or are you starting to get a little bit burnout on that approach? Let me know your thoughts down below, guys, and we will talk about it. Please like and share this video. Hit that subscribe button. Please check out this weekend. We're going to be doing a hopefully an autop stream talking about the Batman tomorrow. Still up in the air, but I'm hoping we're going to get that together. But for sure on Saturday, you're going to get that big ranking of all the live action Batman villains. So if you're a Batman fan, definitely hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any of that. Thank you guys for watching once again, and remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean that you have to be.